All right. All right. I think we're up. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to give a little introduction here. This is American Hammers TV. We've got a special episode today with our first ex-West Ham player ever to come on the show. Kenny Brown was a defender for West Ham in the late 80s, early 90s, around the time I was in high school. Before we get started, I need to mention our sponsor, Strava Craft Coffee, out of Denver, Colorado. Beautiful coffee. Tim just dropped some by at the house today. Just got some about half an hour ago. So we got Strava Craft Coffee around the house. Lovely, very nice. If you go to our link in somewhere, I think it's in our YouTube bio, you can get 15% off Strava Craft Coffee. So please do that if you're so inclined. From what I understand, it's wonderful stuff. I don't actually drink coffee, but if I did, I would drink Strava Craft Coffee. Anyway, so Kenny, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This is really exciting for us. My friend Tim and I started this show at the end of January, and we've done a lot of episodes. We've talked to a lot of people, but you were the first ex-West Ham player we've had on the show, and I'm just super thrilled that you're here.
Lovely. Like I say, thanks for having me. And I can only apologise because my front tooth came out this morning. So if I'm struggling for a few of the words, you just got to bear with me.
No reason to apologize. It's fine. I have had many dental issues myself over the years. I apologize for looking like Gordon Gekko here. I've been swimming with my boys. I just got out of the pool, so I just combed there.
I wish I had that problem.
It's not a bad problem to have. It's true. Well, listen. So let's talk about you now. Your dad obviously played for West Ham for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I'm actually going to talk to an author. There's a book about West Ham. It's just called West Ham United. I think it's called West Ham United, The Making of a Football Club, something along those lines, written by a man named Dr. Charles Core, an American, and really the definitive history of West Ham. And I'm talking to him a week from tomorrow, I think, for the show. Really good guy. And he said your dad was hugely helpful in getting that book written. So I don't know if you know his name. Have you ever heard of him? Or
I have heard, yeah, and I know Dad speak to a lot of sort of journalists and people reminiscing about obviously the history at West Ham and where he played a major part in obviously a lot of success and the major success that the club had at that time. So and again, I mean, he's 85, so there's not many of them left now, unfortunately. So he's still about. He's still he's still fit and well. But yeah, he loves talking about West Ham, and obviously it brings back good memories for him.
Yeah, obviously. And Dr. Court was spoke very highly of him. Had a lot of good things to say. So I thought that was nice. The other thing that we have in common. You were the manager of Chelmsford City Football Club for a while. Is that right? About 5-6 years?
Very briefly, yeah.
So I live in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, which is named after the original Chelmsford, of course. And
right.
I've only been here about 4 years, but I actually follow Chelmsford City Football Club because, the connection. So
yeah,
been following their fortunes the last couple of seasons. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. But I want to talk about you and your time at West Ham. People, when they think of you, and then we've talked to, I don't know if you've seen our show before. We talked to West Ham fans all over the U.S. and all over the U.K. as well. Americans who support West Ham, Brits who live in the U.S. and support West Ham, and also we've talked to the guys from Hammers Chat, West Ham Fan TV, a lot of other places.
Yeah.
When we mentioned Kenny Brown, they say, "Yeah, I liked Kenny Brown. Kenny Brown was a good guy. Always good marks for Kenny Brown." Your most famous goal was obviously the one in 1992 that took the title away from Manchester United, handed it to Leeds. How do you feel about that being your kind of defining West Ham moment in a lot of people's minds?
Obviously very proud. To think that it was sort of 20, we're 92, so, sort of 26, 27 years ago. And people still mention it, and I still get, obviously spoken about when I'm in their company. So for me, for obviously the amount of players that go through West Ham over the years, it's just that I'm obviously very privileged to. It happened to me. It was to score a winning goal against Manchester United. Obviously at home. It was, yeah, like I say, it's a privilege, but it's always nice, and it does still amaze me that people still remember that and obviously comment on it.
Yeah, it's the season itself obviously was a little disappointing. I think that was a relegation season. I think West Ham
Yeah.
were already down by the time you scored the goal, but at least it was. So, do you ever get you ever get any Leeds fans who send you flowers every year? Or?
No, I did. It was funny because they installed some pigeonholes at the at Chadwell Heath. I think it was that season, for the players and to get their mail. And I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't get any mail, so mine was always empty. But it was weird that suddenly I started having all this mail come arriving at the training ground, and obviously it was all from Leeds fans thanking me, and then I believe they actually they created what do you call them? You like a fanzine about my goal. So yeah, it's a little bit surreal. I have no connections at all with Leeds, and there was nothing. But at the time, yeah, I used to get, and I was just surprised. I'd walk past the pigeonholes and think, oh yeah, nothing again. And suddenly a couple would be appearing in there, and like I say, it was all good. It was all good-hearted, and it was funny because I obviously knew Steve Bruce, Mike Phelan, were obviously in the Man United team that night, and I was with them at Norwich, and my dad had bought both of them and sold them, so I had more of an affiliation with Manchester United and obviously with them. So it became a bit awkward, especially after when I left West Ham and I went to Birmingham, and obviously Steve was there as well then. So, but yeah, it was it was a unique night. It was so Alex obviously called it obscene, and like you say, it was, and I think it summed up our season that we played. Obviously, we beat Manchester United on the Wednesday night, and then we went to Coventry on the Saturday and got beat, and I think that probably summed up our season.
I think it sums up West Ham to a large extent, anyway.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of that's truly the West Ham way. So, what are you up to now? What's your current role?
I'm head of coaching at Millwall. So I've been there now for 3.5 years. Brilliant, really good club, good people there, and it's a really good role. And so I work with the under 23s down to the under 9s. And basically look over all football matters. So it's a really good job, and I'm really happy there.
That's nice. And you played for Millwall too after you played for West Ham.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I played when Billy got the job there, and I ended up signing for Bill, and I was there for 2 seasons. Yeah.
So I've wondered, obviously your dad played for West Ham. You grew up around the club. You played for the club. As a player, what does a rivalry mean to you? Obviously West Ham fans, Millwall fans don't get along. We know that. We know the history and all the stories. But you're a professional athlete, or you obviously were at the time. And my thinking is maybe for you the most important thing is just keep playing somewhere. I mean, did it matter that it was Millwall? Did it worry you? Did it bother you?
No, I think I probably wouldn't have gone there. Obviously, if Bill hadn't have got the manager's job and Patsy Holland was his assistant. So it was really I made and in hindsight it was the wrong decision, but I signed for Birmingham in February. So I left West Ham, went to Birmingham. Then the start of the following season, Trevor Francis pulled me and just said, Bill's obviously got the Millwall job, and he's rung up to see if you're available. I still had another 2 years left at Birmingham, but I said I'd go down and speak to Bill. And as soon as I got into the club, and obviously met with Bill again, and it was really it was sort of coming back home, and it didn't faze me. I didn't even think about the rivalry. That doesn't come into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a fans thing, right, as opposed to a players thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can go over the years, and Teddy Sheringham obviously came the other way. Dale Gordon, Paul Allen was at Millwall at the same time as myself. So I think it was more of as a player, as long as I think with both clubs, as long as you're committed and you give everything on the pitch, they'll accept you. I think it's a little bit difficult, a little bit different for managers, and Bill will probably testify to that. And of course, later on down the years, Steve Lomas, who found it difficult there. There's an acceptance to a certain degree, but like I say, as a player, if you're giving you all, they'll accept you, which is all you can ask.
Now, you talked about your relationship with Billy and playing for him. Tell me about what it was like to play for him and what your relationship with him is.
Yeah, well, Bill brought me to West Ham originally on loan. So obviously I knew of Bill, and it was my first real time in his company and how he worked. But he was just a man that you didn't want to. I think the biggest thing for me was you didn't want to let him down. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was greater than anything. And I think there was a real a commitment from everybody to not just perform for themselves and for the supporters, but for Bill as well. And just him as a man, as a person, obviously led by example, didn't complicate anything. Very simplistic in the way he spoke and the way he worked, in a good way. And like I say, we had a variable success. Obviously, we got the relegated that season, but then we came straight back up the following year.
Right.
And then obviously Bill left, so it was a shame it was cut short. But I don't think you speak to anyone who's played under Bill, and they'll say the same thing. He was a man, and you wanted to do well for him.
So what was the story? I want to get to how you joined West Ham, but maybe let's go backwards and start with when you left West Ham. What happened there?
No, nothing. I'd signed a 3-year contract, then I signed another 2 years, and then that was coming to an end, and they offered me a 1 year rolling sort of deal. And back in them days, you obviously if you were out of contract, you stayed at the club. The Bosman ruling wasn't about.
Right.
And obviously I was happy. I was happy at West Ham. I live around the corner and settled, but I wasn't playing enough football. And it comes to a point where you're sort of thinking, well, I miss playing on a Saturday afternoon. And to be fair to Bill and Harry, it was always made clear, and I was always more than happy to. I understand that the position with squads and squad rotation. I was never felt that I was going to ever be sort of the main player there, but I would still contribute and play my games, given a chance. But I think the later on it came, the less opportunities I was given, even though I thought I was probably deserving of a chance. And then I went out on loan a few times, and like I say, Birmingham came in, and it was around Christmas time, and I went there on loan and really enjoyed my football there. But it was maybe because I was still training at West Ham beginning of the week, and then going up the back end of the week, training with Birmingham, playing, and obviously travelling back. But it soon realised that obviously I didn't sign the contract at West Ham. I had a month loan up there, and then Birmingham wanted to buy me, and it sort of happened quite quickly, and I ended up obviously signing for Birmingham.
And you played for Billy Bonds and Harry Redknapp at West Ham both, is that right? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
you did. And I remember, again, I think most American fans like me, we really weren't able to watch English football in any serious way until 20 years ago at the earliest. And a lot of people have only gotten into it the last 10 or 15 years, but it's really been more available on TV. So a lot of what happened 30 years ago when you were playing, it's a little unfamiliar to us. But
yeah,
was some conflict, I guess, between Billy Bonds and Harry Redknapp, and there was some controversy there. Did you remember any of that?
Not really. I mean, obviously I was there at the time, and it was, we just got promoted, so we had a good season. Then, we're going up into the Premier League because we dropped out of the first year of the Premier League. So the inaugural season we weren't in it, but at the time it was really just a change of name, and there was a little bit more publicity, but the money obviously wasn't what it is now. But you could see it was always growing, and by the time we got back in it sort of a year later, you realised the actual coverage obviously on the TV and back of papers, and it was you could see it was growing. But yeah, it was the start of the season. It was tough because we had we were up in Scotland. We had a not a great pre-season, but it was okay. And it was when Joey Beauchamp signed, and it was our record signing at the time. And we obviously brought in John Moncur, and it was a really good. You felt there was a good squad there. We always were quite a tight group anyway, or very tight group. And we lost a couple of players, but brought a couple in, and there was always pre-season. There's always that expectancy, but you didn't see there was any issues, any problems, and I think it just escalated a little bit, and for one reason or another, which is probably, obviously Bill and Harry will know exactly what went on and how it actually transpired that Bill ended up leaving.
Right.
But yeah, we went in. I think we played Portsmouth on the last weekend of the season before the season started. Had a pre-season, the last game down there, and then by the Monday. We went in, but Bill wasn't in, and then we had heard that he had sort of resigned, and it was all a little bit not sure what was happening. Harry came in, and he was taking a day off. We then had a day off. By the time we all came back in, Harry was back in, and obviously he'd taken over the mantelpiece. But like I say, I don't think I couldn't tell you exactly what went on or why it went on. They're questions for Bill and Harry, I think.
Did it? Yeah, obviously, it's true. Did it destabilize the team at the time, and was it a big shock? Did it have an effect on the players?
It was a big shock, yeah, because you didn't see it coming. You didn't see, like I say, Bill and Harry, were really good friends, and that we'd worked. Obviously, Harry came in the previous season, so the pair of them had brought us and got a group together that got promotion. So there was a lot of expectancy, and there was a little bit more money around, and I think everyone was looking forward to the start of the season. So yeah, it was a little bit different. It was it was difficult because it was just not sure what had gone on. So that sort of not knowing, I think it's different if Bill had gone to another club or Harry had gone to another club or whatever. At least you can know that there's something behind it. But there was that, not quite sure exactly what went on, but. Because the games, literally, the season came upon us so quickly, there wasn't any time to be reflecting. And as footballers, you do get on with it. As much as you might be close to certain managers or certain players, they come and go. And, unfortunately, you get on with it. You go in the next day and you're back training and back working again and looking forward to the next game. So there wasn't a lot of dwelling about. There was obviously a lot of speculation in papers, and like you say, in them days, you didn't have the internet as it is now.
Sure.
Social media, so it was all a little bit more confined. So it was more in the press, but in the end, as players, you get on with it. And to be fair, Harry obviously took it on and brought Frank Lampard Senior in, and it moved on again.
Yeah. I'm curious as to because you're an ex-player, we haven't had an ex-player yet. A lot of people talk about the atmosphere at the Olympic Stadium being a little bit lacking compared to the Berlin. In general, as a footballer, how much did the fans affect you during a match? Or were we able to block that out? Did you pay attention to them at all?
No, I think you can do. I think I was fortunate enough to play at Upton Park, when it was the old Upton Park.
Right.
Before the sort of the 3 new stands went in.
Right.
And it was, you ask any player that won, but I mean, it's fantastic because you literally, I think it was the days when there was a little bit more banter between supporters and players, a little bit more closeness. And I think you've obviously lost that now for different reasons, but obviously the ground was really tight. And there was a real togetherness, and you always felt that at home games, especially when the big teams came down, you'd give them a game. They were always expecting a tough game when they came to us, and that was the case. Yeah, typical, as no different now. We'd go and beat Manchester United, and then we'll go and lose to, we lost to Oldham at home and Notts County, and you just think, that's us, but it wasn't just us. It was, that was before us and obviously after us as well. But yeah, the ground, the way the ground was set up was fantastic, and the closeness to the supporters, and it was a real when that was full house, and especially I know everyone talks about it, but under the lights at Upton Park is a real special occasion. And I'm, like I say, I'm just grateful and proud that I had the opportunity to play there and have the fans on my side. But even when you speak to opposition players, they love playing there because of the closeness and the intensity of the ground and the supporters. So yeah, it was a great place to play football.
Where were your least favorite places to play throughout your career? The places you just hated going?
I wouldn't say anywhere really. I was lucky. I played in the old first division with Norwich.
Mm-hmm.
And then was in what is now the Championship with Plymouth, and then went from there to West Ham and to Birmingham, and I played in sort of all the leagues really. Ended up at Gillingham,
Mm-hmm.
and even going down, there was no grounds I ever thought, God blimey, I'm not sure about this one. There's some special grounds. There's grounds that you do. The old Highbury was fantastic. Obviously, Everton, Liverpool, Anfield's a special place to play. I was fortunate enough to play in them games. Obviously now, all these new grounds are going up, similar to the London Stadium now, and people don't get the opportunity to go and play at the nostalgic grounds, which is a shame. But football moves on, and everyone's now going to make their memories of the new grounds, and West Ham supporters, players are no different. So I'm sure we'll have a bright future at the London Stadium.
What do you think of modern football in general? Because I feel as though you were right at the end of an era. You played prior to the Premier League. You played right before the huge money really came in, the big TV exposure really came in. You played before it became the big international sensation that it is now. I mean, there were no Americans watching English football in any serious way in 1992, but now there are, many thousands, maybe millions of us. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what's your general impression? Do you like where it's going, or do you sort of have regrets about where it's headed?
No, I don't have any regret. Listen, everyone who played then would love the money now, obviously.
Right.
But like I said earlier, what they're missing out on now is, I think there was a, and not just at West Ham, but all the clubs I played at, you had a connection with the supporters. So, you would leave the ground and you'd just go to you'd go to a pub, or you'd be out that night, and you'd have supporters come up and go, like, brilliant today, well done. Or if you had lost, don't worry about today, make sure we go and win next week. I think now, unfortunately, because of the money involved, it brings a bit of resentment. And I think that supporters now, I think if you saw players out now after a defeat, it'll be all over social media, and they'd be getting grief, and they'll be getting a lot of they'll probably end up in a lot of trouble, where we never got that when we played. So obviously the players today don't have that. And I just think that the togetherness of the group, whether that was going at wherever you were, and again, the way football's gone, which isn't a bad thing anyway, but I do look at, we were predominantly all British. There wasn't, we didn't, even though the back end of my time there, foreign players were coming into the club and coming into football. But I think now there seems that, you look at the transfer windows, and probably 80-90% of the people that are moving on or moving in them windows are foreign players, and not necessarily better than some of the players that are already over here. And obviously working in an academy now, you do have a little bit of a worry that they are eating up spaces and places for sort of homegrown players, and how much opportunity they do get.
Do you think the players, you talked about how tight the West Ham team was, and how you knew, players from other clubs and so forth? And do you think that's still the case in football, that players, have strong relationships with each other, know each other, keep in touch, or do you think they're more mercenaries now?
I think the local. Well, I say the local. I think that the British players do, because obviously they probably grew up and come through the system, and they've been in and around, and they know everything. I think it's very difficult. That was a hard word to say for me. Very difficult for the sort of foreign players to come in, and they'll be close, and they'll you know, I'm not saying that they're ever alienated. I don't think they are. I think they really do bond in well with the rest, and they mix well, and but again, they'll only go where the football is. They won't build up real long-term relationships, and that's just the nature of the football now. You know, it's very rare that you get players staying around, and not just players, obviously managers are probably only on a 6-7 game cycle of you know, that close to being sacked. So I think that doesn't help the situation. So I think if you have a manager, it's like the old days. You know, if a manager's in place for 5, 6, 7 years, they tend to keep the same players around. They'll add to it. So that's just the way football's gone. It won't. I don't think it'll ever go back to how it was.
No,
Not saying it was better then, or you know, or better now. But I think you do need a sort of a blend. And like I say, you're just a little bit concerned that there's too many average foreign players coming in purely because of they're cheaper. When you know, you'd probably like to see some of the local players getting more of a chance. You know, and I think that, you know, you only got to look at probably West Ham over the last few years. I think especially under Slaven, when sort of there was, again, because that was the market he knew, which is, you know, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you did always look and think, well, maybe are there not any younger players that could have broken into that team now? And I think that's the one thing that when I speak to supporters and staff, whoever, you know, obviously the new manager in at West Ham is very much, he wants to promote from within, and he wants to see the young kids given a chance. So, which is brilliant, and I think all supporters would, you know, they warm to that and they love that.
Absolutely, I know we're for it, and everybody we talk to is for it. Everybody wants to see, you know, the academy develop players. I feel as though the academy went through a difficult period after the kind of Rio Ferdinand era, when we developed, you know, a lot of players. You know, like we look at Frank Lampard Jr. and Rio and Glenn Johnson and Jermaine Defoe and some of these guys who went to play for England. There was maybe 8 or 10 years in there when there was a little bit of a gap, but now you look at Declan Rice, he looks like a star. We have you know, some players coming through the ranks like Nathan Holland and a few others. So I feel as though the academy is sort of strengthening again. And yes, I'm with you. We are all for seeing, you know, homegrown English players play. I mean, it's an English club, and West Ham have always been a quintessentially English club too. You know, more so than a lot of other clubs. Tell me about, so if we could back up a little bit, tell me about when you came to West Ham. You had been at Plymouth, I think.
Yeah.
How you got the opportunity and what it felt like to go, you know, to the club you grew up with.
Yeah, it was weird. Again, like I said, no, you know, back then there was no Bosman, and I'd had 3 seasons down at Plymouth. The last season I was Player of the Year. Really enjoyed my time there. We were in the Championship. Never really flirted with relegation. Always sort of mid-table, and we had the odd cup run. And I really enjoyed my football down there. And it was my first club that I'd left Norwich and played a few games there. You know, 20, 30 games there. But then when I came to Plymouth, I was near enough a regular in the team for 3 seasons. Again, it was only a tight group of players because we didn't have big budgets, and attracting players also down to the West Country was not easy, as I'm sure they still find it now. But what we did, and it was, like I said, I love my football down there. But the 3rd season, I'd made a decision that I needed to, or wanted to get sort of back, preferably back to London. I wouldn't lie. I think the travelling does get to you at some point because you are so far away from everywhere. And unlike now, where, you know, you might get the odd plane journey or trains, where, you know, we're on a coach every time. So every away game was a big journey. So and you were getting in really late on a Saturday night. So in the end, it did take its toll. But like I say, they offered me another contract, which I didn't sign, not because I didn't want to be there. I just felt it was the right time to move. And then ended up through the summer, didn't really had a few conversations, but nothing materialised. And so I went back to pre-season with Plymouth, and Dave Kemp was the manager then. And he was honest to say, look, obviously you're not signed your contract, so I can't really put you in my plans. I was on the transfer list. So, which is fine. I agreed that, knew that. And then it was a chance meeting between my dad and Billy, and Bill sort of asked how I was, and what was I doing, and sort of he said, look, he's sort of a little bit in limbo at the moment. Said, well, look, would he come to West Ham on loan because we got loads of injuries. So Dad rung me. I think this was on the Tuesday or Wednesday, and ended up next day I got the phone call, that night I got the phone call to say, look, West Ham have been in to take me on loan. Plymouth were happy with that. Make your way to London, and that was it. So I literally got the car, drove up to the Swallow Hotel on the Thursday, trained with the boys on the Friday, and then we had the Makita tournament over that weekend at Highbury. So it was a bit of a whirlwind. It all happened quite quickly, but I treated pre-season properly at Plymouth, and it was a tough pre-season. We went to an army camp, so I was in, fitness-wise, I was in good shape, and I needed to be. But I came into my first game was that Saturday, and we had Sampdoria, and we ended up getting beat 6-0, blazing hot day, and sort of come away thinking, well, lovely. It was lovely playing for West Ham, but getting beat 6-0 wasn't great. It wasn't great. I'm not sure what the fans thought of me. Then we played Panathinaikos the next day, the Sunday, and we drew, and it went to penalties, and I ended up taking a penalty and scoring. So and we ended up winning the penalty shootout. So we finished third in it, and then the following week the season started, and we had Luton at home, and I was still in the team. Injuries hadn't really cleared up, so I started the season and didn't really look back. I had some really good games and scored maybe a couple of important goals, or one especially, and then. Obviously, my month loan was coming to an end. West Ham had asked to take me for another month, a second month. Plymouth refused it. So it was a case of I either went back or West Ham had to sign me. And unfortunately enough, Bill pulled me it was after the Aston Villa game, which was the midweek game, and then we had Notts County at the weekend, and pulled me on the Thursday and just said, no, we want to sign you. Told me like they asked for another month. We refused. So they said, no, we're going to go to a tribunal and sort of here's what we can offer you. I agreed it there and then, and that was it. I was a West Ham player. So, very grateful for that. But it just shows you just don't know what's around the corner with football. You only have a phone call or a meeting away from, your pathway going in a different direction.
So it was Billy Bonds who came to your dad and asked about you playing.
Yeah, they met each other. I think it was at a game, and they bumped into each other. Obviously, they knew each other and they spoke. And like I said, it was just that conversation of, how's Kenny doing? And he said, yeah, he's doing well, but obviously not in the team, looking to get away. And Bill said, would he come on loan to help out? And it was that. But I think, like I say, because injuries never cleared up. Fortunately for me, they ended up, wanting to keep me there. And like I say, I started the season. I done quite well. And whether I scored against Aston Villa on that Wednesday night, and we won 3-1. And I thought, if that was going to be my last game, then I played under the lights, scored. I've not had a bad month loan. But fortunately enough, like I say, Bill decided to sign me and ended up staying for nearly 6 seasons there. So very fortunate. And like I say, I was weaned on West Ham. Obviously, the family, mum and dad grew up local. Dad obviously had a vast history at the club, so it was always my club and always will be, no matter where I go, what I do. It was, like I said, and I do say it a bit, but really privileged to have the opportunity to play at such a great club.
How do they feel at Millwall when you say West Ham will always be your club?
No, they're fine. Like I say, they understand. We've got. Listen, I say that, but like I say, I played for Millwall.
Yeah.
And working there, and I couldn't be in a better place. I think what I love about the club, it's still got the really old values there.
Yeah.
So it's not been saturated with money. It hasn't had the privilege of Premier League money.
Yeah.
So everyone works really hard. They go way and above their job descriptions, and that's right from top to bottom. I have a good relationship with the first team managers and the staff. I played with Neil Harris at Millwall, and like I say, so it's got a lot of things going for the club. And you know, for me in the role I do, I couldn't be at a better club. I really couldn't, because it's got history, but it's got them values at West Ham. You know, in clubs they're very similar. You know, they're workmanlike, and you know, it's a working man's club. And yeah, West Ham have got the money and have had the money now for a while, but Millwall still hold true to their values, which is important to me.
Do you feel the same way about West Ham with the current ownership? I mean, do you think West Ham are holding true to their values as well, or do you think they've strayed a little bit?
No, I think it's really difficult. You know, the money involved now, and I think you have to keep up with it. I mean, obviously the big move, you know, 3 years ago, which divided a lot of people, but it was an opportunity that you just couldn't turn down. You know, and obviously over time, when actually the deals came out of what they're paying and how they've, you know, what they've done, it was an incredible deal. And you would have been mad not to have gone for it and gone and got it. So yeah, the club is, you know, you're talking 60,000 there every week now. When I was playing, I think we held 26,000 at Upton Park. The first few years before the new stands went up.
Right.
So it wasn't, you know, that's a massive jump, and they're filling it. So, and with that brings more anticipation, but also, you know, responsibilities. They need to stay in the Premier League, but they need to start, you know, all this money. It's okay having the money and spending it, but there needs to be returns on it.
Right.
So just staying in the league isn't going to be enough. They need to, you know, either get into Europe or go and win a cup. So it's exciting times for West Ham, and but it brings its own pressures, and but it's a great time. I'm sure it's every support, especially now. I think they're sort of bedded into the stadium. I think the football's good now. I think they've got a good, healthy squad. Be interesting what happens in the summer, but I'm looking forward to next season. I think that they're, you know, if they can keep the majority of their players who they want and add to it, then it should be a good season ahead for West Ham.
Yeah, we feel the same way. I mean, I think with a healthy squad, I think this is, you know, not far off of being a top 8 team with a healthy squad, and maybe even better than that. I'm curious as to your time when you were at West Ham, your relationship with the fans. You know, obviously we know about Frank Lampard Jr. He had a lot of problems with West Ham fans in his time there. Probably it was part of what ran him away from the club, and he's been pretty resentful ever since, as we know. So, did you feel pressure being the son of a well-known West Ham player? Did you have any? Were there fans who had expectations for you thought were unrealistic or unfair, or was it a pretty good relationship?
No, from day one, I always had a good relationship. I think it was more for me because Dad was there for so long, and there were still people working at the club when Dad was working there. So, you know, and when I came in, it felt right. It just felt like, you know, you're coming sort of back into home and back into a club that you know, even though I'd never played there. You know, as obviously but we used to play. You know, we used to always play West Ham when I was in the youth team at Norwich, because obviously Dad was manager there.
Right.
And you'd played, you know, you were in the South East counties, so you played all the top clubs. You played at the ground, so I'd go up to Upton Park, and you'd go to Highbury and go to Stamford Bridge, and every time I'd go to West Ham, everyone would welcome me, and I wouldn't know him, but they'd come up and go, "How's your dad? Oh, tell him I say hello." And it was lovely because he was, you know, obviously really well liked and well remembered. So it broke the ice there. So when I came, it was, again, initially, I think I was there to help out, which was fine, having the opportunity to play with West Ham. But I think supporters soon realised what I could do. Listen, I was never the most talented, but I think every club I went to, you know, I sort of got the most out of what I had, and I didn't stop working at it. And I wanted to, you know, obviously do well. But I think West Ham was always that club where, as soon as I signed there, you knew it was a special place, and every minute I loved every minute of training, playing, and I think that reflected in the way I played and the reaction I got from supporters.
You know, the thing that everybody has said about you, everything I've read and everything I've asked people about, they've always said, he always put out 100% effort. He always worked hard, and I don't think that's true of every player. I don't know if you had that experience. I watch West Ham now, and I don't want to. We've named names on the show before. I don't want to do it right now necessarily, but there are only a handful of players I would say, always put out 100% effort every time they play. Like a Mark Noble, for instance, is in that category.
Yeah.
Some of the guys I watch now, I mean, I feel as though they're not always doing everything they can on the pitch during the match to make the team better. Sometimes they're a little lazy. Sometimes they take weeks off. Did you think it was that way when you were playing? Did you find guys who were a little out of it sometimes, and maybe Billy or you or somebody else had to go up and say, "Hey, you got to get yourself together here"?
No, I was lucky. I mean, we had a really good dressing room, and we had the likes of Alvin Martin, Tony Gale, some Ian Bishop, some real experienced players, but also ones that knew the club. Alvin had been there for however long, and gone through had some success there, and you came in and you just didn't want. Again, it's that same scenario with Bill. You didn't want to let anyone down. You didn't want to let your teammates down.
Yeah.
And if you weren't doing it, they'd tell you. It wouldn't be waiting till for the manager to tell you. The players would tell you, and you'd accept it. But that's one thing that would have hurt me was if I was accused of not trying, because I think that's, again, I wouldn't want that. Yeah, I might not have been technically the best, and I might have, if it was a technical thing or something that, I'm giving the ball away or I'm letting the ball go under me. Yeah, I accept that, no problems. But what you can't do is not give everything and not, not give everything and not work hard. You bring that to the table every time. And for me, it was quite easy to do because that's just how I was brought up. I was fortunate that it was installed in me at a very early age. This is, if you're doing something you love, do everything you can to keep it going. And so yeah, that for me, that was the biggest thing. And with senior players, I think everyone says about it now, but your dressing room's only as good as your senior players in it. And we had some good senior players at the club at the time. And again, you look back, or I look back, and fortunate to be in there because, again, them values that we speak about were evident, every day, because you'd come in, everyone wanted to be on time, everyone wanted to do the most, and everyone chipped in for each other. So if anyone would come to the club and not probably, would maybe shy away from doing the running, would get them involved and, no, come on, you're part of this. We're all doing it. Because you used to run after every training session, you'd be doing doggies. Whatever you're doing, whether it was a Friday, you'd do doggies. But that's what you done. It was funny because when the start of when some of the foreign players came in, couldn't understand it. But we were going, no, come on, get involved with us. And they're going, no, I've done enough. I'm going to go in for a massage. And we go, no, you ain't. Come on, you're going to do some doggies with us. And in the end, it just brought everyone together. But yeah, I think work ethic, again, that's all supporters want. I think if you can show them, and that's all Bill used to drive into us, before games, half time, give everything you got out there. Don't let the supporters down. Just show that you try. If you give the ball away, do everything you can to get it back. And, that was installed in all the players there. So, like I say, it rubbed off on me and I was fortunate for that.
Do you get the sense, and I know, maybe not in your own experience as at Millwall or anywhere else, but when you watch football, when you watch Premier League or the big leagues around Europe, do you feel as though the work ethic is maybe not what it used to be, that there are players who are kind of prima donnas or get a little lazy, or do you think they're probably working as hard as they ever did?
It's difficult. Yeah, you get infuriated at times watching players, and they'll attack, and the attack will break down, and the transition is quick, and you'll just see them walking, or they won't go and press someone,
right?
Because they're an offensive player.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah, they do. But then you got to look, and is that what the manager wants from him? You don't know. And it's really hard to be judgmental to sit there and go, well, he's not trying. I think they all do try in their own way. But again, I think you only got to look at the successful teams this season in the Premier League. I don't think there's anyone in Manchester City's team or Liverpool's team that don't leave everything on the pitch. Yeah. There's no luxury players, and you only got to watch them when both teams lose the ball. They're all at it. They're incredible. And that's 1 to 11. That's the whole team. You don't leave players that are sort of going, well, you 8 do all the work and I'll wait till we gain possession again. Doesn't work like that. And like I say, I think it's refreshing, but it's good. I think it's what the club need, and it just puts the fitness levels and the energy into time, because there's some really good players out there. And the difference is the work ethic. Everybody says about the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, the Manchester Cities, Manchester United, when they were at their peak. Yeah, they're all good footballers, and with the ball they can kill you, but it's what they do without the ball. They're on you, and they press you until they win the ball back again, and then they keep the ball, and that's when their quality comes. So, yeah, I think you'll probably find a little change probably next season as well now. Some of the top clubs who might carry them sort of luxury players, so-called, may be recruiting other ones that will bring that effort in that maybe the others aren't.
So, excellent point, I think. Yeah. Who were, shifting gears a little bit, who were some of your favorite teammates just through all your whole career, West Ham or otherwise?
Well, I was lucky. I grew up when I came through the ranks at Norwich. We had Dave Watson, Steve Bruce was centre halves, Chris Woods was the goalkeeper, Kevin Drinkle, Mike Phelan, some brilliant. Trevor Putney was a real character at Norwich, and because in them days you had the under-18s, you had the reserves and the first team, really close, all trained at the same time at the same training ground, like everyone did at that time. But it was a really good group, and I look back even then, and some real characters. Like I say, Trevor Putney, who was Norwich signed from Ipswich, was a brilliant character, good player, but really was life and soul of it. And then I know Dad brought in people like Ian Crook, Ian Culverhouse, Mark Bowen to the same group. Again, real good characters, all in their own way, funny, but had all little quirks, and it was then where characters really it was in abundance. And I know now, and obviously the role I do, and you talk to other clubs, and everyone wants a character. Everyone wants to see a personality in people, where unfortunately you don't get them now. But yeah, and then when I was at Plymouth, Andy Morrison, who was a young kid then, who's obviously gone on and played for Man City, had a great career and doing well in management now. Nicky Marker, who was Mark Stewart, who we signed from Charlton, David Byrne, Danny Salmon, who were from Millwall, and we brought them down, and just again unbelievable characters. Reece Wilmot, the ex-Arsenal goalkeeper, was down there, and it was just that camaraderie really dragged the team, to get them boys down to the West Country, but then performing. And like I say, we'd all go out Sunday week. We'd go for drinks. Some real good characters. And obviously, then when I ended up at West Ham, you had Bish and Trevor Morley, Tony Gale, real funny people. And then a couple of years later, Johnny Moncur comes along, and Lomi, and Don Hutchinson, Michael Hughes, Keith Rowland. Some really good people, and again, probably above that, one of my sort of closest friends when I was at West Ham, and after that, Julian Dix, who was an unbelievable character, and funny in his own right, because he was completely. It was like two different people being on the pitch and training to when he left the training ground, and I loved him, and I still do, and I'm still in contact with him. But yeah, when you look at characters and you look at people like that, again, I'm really fortunate to have played and called people like that friends, and some real stories that you look back on, and memories that were brilliant.
So, among the West Ham fans you're talking about, who was the most fun on a night out? Who was kind of the one who
I think, well, yeah, night out would. I think you'd have to say Bish was, only because he never missed a night out. So whatever night you were out, he was there, and he was always good entertainment. Johnny Moncur was good, still is, real character, and again, just people that they're just funny in their own right, and they don't do it for show. They don't do it. They love company and they love people around them. But like I say, I think that Bish at that time when there was Bish, Trevor Morley, obviously Frank was in his second spell with us. That was when I first signed, and going out in London and going out and about and getting invited to these places with you can imagine with Frank and Bish was an experience in itself. So yeah, good memories and really good people.
Any stories you could tell or
loads? Yeah, nothing that I can tell you on here.
Fair enough. Maybe next time. Maybe we'll have you back
next time.
I was curious about the 92 season when you relegated, but as you said, that was before the start of the Premier League, and of course came back up the very next season. I feel as though now relegation is a total disaster for a lot of clubs. It means an enormous drop in TV revenue. It means a drop in revenue at the gate. Players leave. There's a huge exodus of players. What was it like back then? And obviously you were able to come straight back up. So what was the attitude when you went down? Was it like, this is the end of the world, or was it, okay, we have to work harder? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I think it was very much that. It was, it wasn't a massive disaster like it is now. I mean, obviously today we've looked at the playoff final. It's worth 170 million to the winners, and then it's going to be worth 7 million to obviously Derby now, being just through TV rights, being back in the Championship. The money's now put a massive pressure on clubs, and you didn't have that back then. And the good thing was, obviously, they stuck with Bill anyway. So Bill, invariably, a team gets relegated, the manager's sacked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill stayed, brought Harry in, and the group near enough stayed together. They lost a couple, I think, a couple left. Stuart Slater left, but we brought in Mark Robson from Tottenham, and that season was a really exciting season because we had. Again, it was a group of players that really wanted to turn it around, and we knew we were good enough. We hadn't been the previous season, and we got relegated for a reason. But that season, it was a real, like I say, it was majority of the same players, a couple of additions, and we started the season really well. And I think it just kicked on from there. We had a couple of blips, but in hindsight, and when you're looking back, we were strong throughout that season. And fortunately enough, we went up, in automatic spot. I think it was Newcastle were the runaway leaders.
Yeah.
And then we finished second and went up. And like I say, I think you couldn't put your finger on why we done it, but invariably it was the same group, manager. Nothing really changed. It was just a case of, come on, we know we're better than this. Let's put it, let's put it to the test now, and I think we were. There were some games that we were so dominant. Obviously, there were some tough teams in there and games, but like I say, over the course of a season, like the season before where we got relegated, and deservedly so, we got promoted, and again, we warranted that.
We talk a lot about on the show. We talk a lot about, as all West Ham fans do, how West Ham can go out and beat Tottenham, go out and beat Arsenal and Manchester United, and lose to Burnley and lose to Bournemouth and Cardiff and the whole thing. I mean, I guess it's always kind of been that way. So as a player, I mean, is it just easier to get up for the big clubs? Is it when you have an Oldham Athletic come in, is it just harder to sort of be excited for that, or why does that happen at West Ham in particular, do you think?
I have no idea. If I knew the answer. But it's like I said before, it's happened before I got to the club. It happened while I was at the club, and it's happening, after I left, and it's still happening. You can't put your finger on it. If obviously, I think when the big clubs came, like I said, especially to Upton Park, they knew they were in for a game. because of the tightness of the ground and the intensity of it, which was fantastic. Again, moving to the London Stadium, you lost that, and I think for a few years, I think big teams came there, and we didn't really have that. Well, we definitely didn't have the intensity, and it was a case of let's see how many we can keep it down to. And that wasn't probably, I think the top clubs have got stronger, and I think we were still finding enough feet a little bit with personnel and obviously the actual move. So I think now though this season, you look and I look at how we've got on against the top teams, the so-called top teams at the London Stadium, and I think we've got back to that. I think they're going to come and be a little bit wary of it. It's not an easy game now. So I think the teams, exactly what you said. Do we build up? I think supporters do, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, that expectancy of, well, it's only Southampton or it's only Burnley. We should be beating them. We have no right to beat any teams in the Premier League. I've been there and Bournemouth have beaten us there, Brighton, but deservedly so. They're good teams, and there's no shame in getting beat by these Premier League clubs because they've got the money and they've got some really good players and they've all got good managers. So it's not like the old days when, like you say, we were getting beat by Oldham or Notts County. You're getting beat by really top Premier League clubs that are established in there now. So a little bit different, but I think the mentality of supporters have changed a little bit as well. So I don't think that I'd like to think that they don't just look and go, well, we're going to turn up and beat Southampton and beat these so-called lesser teams, because it just doesn't happen anymore.
What do you think about the internet and social media and the impact it's had on football and on players in particular? I mean, I know Mark Noble brought this out during the season. He said some of these guys get in from the training ground, they're immediately on their phones looking at what people are saying about them. Obviously, that wasn't the case in your era. Maybe there was something on the back page of the Sun or whatever, but that wasn't. Fans weren't really able to be down on you all the time in a direct way. You work with young players now. How do you think it affects them compared to when you were playing?
It's probably the biggest factor in and the biggest change in football away from Sky and what that's brought. I think social media now is massive. I mean, all our kids have social media training, there's safeguarding, welfare, without going into that sort of can of worms. But yeah, I mean, when we played, you'd wait for the Sunday papers and look at your marks, and literally it was blimey, I only got a 6. I thought I played really well, or you'd get beat, and someone who you wouldn't know who's watched the game has given you a 7 or an 8. You'd walk into training thinking you'd played well, and you'd know you hadn't, but because you'd seen that mark, and that was it. You had no other coverage. Again, Sky, only when you were televised, they'd scrutinise a little bit, but nothing like now. And I think it's really difficult. I think the mental side of football has really come on, and you've got to be tough. You've got to be, I watched the playoff final. They're giving out selfie sticks, and they have done for a number of years now, to the team that go up.
Right.
So they're filming themselves. You can't get away from it. You can't ignore it. You have to go with it, because a lot of kids now, this is how they learn, and this is how they, they're taught themselves, and a lot of their education, and a lot of it's good. Majority of it's good, and but unfortunately, it's too easy now to voice an opinion and get it heard, and it's instant. So someone doesn't like this interview, they're gonna tap away and hammer me or hammer you, and sort of you got to take it, and you don't know who they are, you never met them, but unfortunately, you're on that stage.
They pay attention to it, right? I mean, like the kids you coach. I mean, I don't know how often the academy kids at Millwall are in social media, but if they are, I mean, it affects them, doesn't it?
Massively.
Yeah,
massively, and it's a. I think you've got to really you've got to be open-minded with social media. I mean, we obviously, it's more about what our players are putting up and what sites they're visiting, and don't come back with. I think it was recently when a player got pulled up and got fined he got fined £20,000 for something he put on Twitter 6 years ago, a homophobic
Yes,
remark.
yes. When he was like 15 years old.
Right. For me, that's,
yeah.
Is that really sending out the right signals? Is it, what is the point of that?
Well,
we're realistic.
Stupid things when I was 15. A whole lot of stupid things when I was 15.
Right.
I just say them on the internet. Because there was no internet back then. So.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not going to make a point about it. For me, it was just the wrong way. It's the wrong way of going about it. But they have to be seen to be doing stuff where, now kids are, they'll obviously look on every website and all the fan zones that are now gone on internet based. Like I say, they'll all have an input and they'll all have an opinion, and no different. Everyone's going to come out thinking he played well, he was crap, but now they've got a platform to show it on. I think as a player now, I think you've either got to eliminate yourself from that, or just look at it when you've won. And basically, that's it. When you've lost or played poorly, just turn off all your mobiles. Don't go on the internet, and go down the beach with the dog or something. Keep away from it all.
That's a good idea. We're just about at the end of our hour, but I want to ask before we go. Do you get to go to the Olympic Stadium at all? Do you get to watch West Ham? I know you're busy with Millwall. You're probably at Millwall on most Saturdays, but are you able to sneak over from time to time?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough. I'm one of the ambassadors over there. I don't get as many opportunity to go as much as I probably could or I can. Like you say, I'm always involved with with our games, especially on a Saturday morning, and if the first team are at home. So I don't go to Saturday fixtures at West Ham.
Right.
So I'm involved with obviously Millwall. But any midweek ones, I can try and get over there, and there's probably a group of 16, 20 of us that alternate who goes over, and so I was lucky enough to go to the last couple of games this season. So I've probably been about 6, 7 times this season throughout it. So it's been good, and it's always nice. Again, it's nice because you see, players that I played with, Georgie Paris and Stuart Slater, Alan McKnight, people that you wouldn't see day to day. I mean, George lives down in Brighton, but they come up and I see them, and so it's nice just to see them. And then you go and you mix with the supporters, you watch the games. Obviously, you see more current players that are there, like Carlton Cole and Jack Collison, Marlon Harewood. So it's nice because you feel you're still involved there, and it's nice. But like I say, my priority and my loyalties at the moment are with Millwall. So that's where I am. And if they clash, then I have to get. I'm a Millwall boy.
Of course, it has to be. And you still live in the area, right? You still live in.
Yeah. So I'm still local. So it's not. It's I don't think we'll be moving away anytime soon. So we're here, the family. My daughter and my son are working local. My youngest is at Arsenal in the academy there. So we're all we're local, and we're happy. But it's good because I'm not too far from where we train at Millwall, so I can get through to either go over the bridge or through the tunnel, and I'm there. And likewise, if I have to get to London Stadium, I can get to Stratford easy enough.
That's fantastic. Kenny, I'm so thrilled to have you here. My boys are going to start clamoring for me to come down pretty soon. It's a holiday here, and it's very pretty and sunny outside.
Love it.
Which does not happen very often in the greater Boston area. So I think I better go take care of them. But I cannot thank you enough for being here. Really, really appreciate it, and we hope you come back again sometime.
No, thanks for having me on. It's enjoyable. Good speaking to you.
All right, hang on just a second. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'll talk to you.
No problem.